It's your ability to understand how it works, to understand how it works.
Q-tape. Possibilities Network. And 3, 2, 1. Live from Indianapolis, Indiana, this is the iPad Possibilities Show. With your host, Tim Chapman.
Welcome to the iPad Possibilities Podcast, episode number 43, a big week and third-party browsers. Well, welcome. This is the iPad Possibilities Podcast. Basically, this podcast, its mission is to help people discover the different possibilities and potential of the iPad. I'm here with John Finnan. How are you doing today, John?
Good, Tim. How are you today?
Really good. It's been a fun couple of days. I've been moving out of the old university and finally all moved in and got the new setup here. So on the home network, it's much slower than the university network. So hopefully the network holds up and everything like that tonight.
I think you'll be fine.
Well, before we get started and everything, I'd like to once again thank the It's On My Way application. It's found in the App Store now for $2.99. It's an application that I use to basically just plan out errands because it basically finds the quickest way to get from point A to point B to point C. And it's been recently reviewed by Macworld, so if you check out macworld.com, just search It's On My Way, and you'll find out their take on it there. So it's in the App Store now for $2.99. I'd like to thank them once again for sponsoring this podcast. And with that said, let's kind of introduce what this episode's about. It's been a huge week as far as different announcements that have come. I mean, individuals are able to publish books now without publishing houses to get into the iBooks. The Nook app's now available, and lots of other things we'll get to, but just a big week. And later on, we're going to get to, I've been looking into third-party browsers on the iPad. There's a lot of basically individualized browsers that are good at single-purpose tasks. So we'll be getting into some of those and kind of the pros and cons of what some of those might offer. So that's kind of what this episode's all about. And I wanted to welcome basically the new listeners. I've been noticing a huge listener increase after the international launch. I'm guessing that's where it all came from. But welcome if this is your first episode, and feel free to check out past episodes. We go into a lot of vertical markets and individualized fields. So check those out, and feel free to email me at ipadpossibilities@gmail.com if you have any questions you'd like to ask. I'd be happy to answer those. And I also wanted to update everyone on kind of the audio. I've been having a couple of audio problems. As of recently, I've been switching over the way I've been editing it, and I've basically haven't been listening to both sides of the conversation as well as I should have. So I'm in the process of fixing the past few episodes. GarageBand is basically force quitting on me when I go back to re-encode the episodes. I'm going to start from scratch on the music instrument episode. But the news episode, if you re-download that should sound much better. So I just want to update you on that. I'm aware of the problem, and it's being fixed right now. So with that said, let's get on to the first use case, the new use case of the week. And this is an article I found at appleinsider.com through the early edition app that I now have, which is just fantastic. I've been using it a lot. But basically, Mercedes-Benz is now using iPads to sell cars. What they're doing is they're equipping 40 dealerships with iPads as a tool to sell cars with. What did you think about this, John? I think it's a pretty great idea.
Yeah, it is a phenomenal idea, and it reminds me of another thing I just heard about at work. Is there's a user conference for a content management system, and they're having the conference in a couple months, and I just heard that as part of the conference registration, everybody gets an iPad with all of the documentation for the conference.
Oh wow, that is awesome.
It's just this whole way of holding infinite amount of information in your hand. It's just a phenomenal thing. So I assume that Mercedes is doing all the service manuals and all user manuals are going to be on the iPad.
Yeah, and I'd assume as a selling tool, they'd probably have brochures on it, and they'd have some pretty, I guess, detailed. They might even check people out, buying their car through the iPad. Maybe, I'm not sure all the details behind it. I know Subaru is actually, instead of giving you a paper manual, I believe they're giving you an iPad with the manual in PDF form or something as well. So car companies are really starting to embrace it, and as you just said, even other markets.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal where people are taking this thing, and it's just we're just at the tip of the iceberg in all the places that people are going to see a use for the iPad. Just phenomenal.
Yeah, completely. It feels weird. It does not feel like a version 1 product to me, except for lack of printing. But besides that, the fit and finish of what we have with the iPad right now is leaps and bounds beyond any other version 1 product. Take, for instance, the Apple TV. Version 1 was very limited in what it could do. The MacBook Air, they got the design right, but the internals, the fans just went crazy if you went to any site that had any sort of flash. So they did this right with the version 1, which is very cool. And I can't wait to see what version 2 and 3 end up including.
Yeah, I have to think that just because of the negative press that circulated around with the Newton, that there was a lot of thought about what can Apple produce that is not going to have the same kind of negativity and not appear to be released too early. And of course, Windows has been working on tablet stuff for, I don't know, 5, 6, maybe more years, maybe 10 years for all I know. Can't remember when they first came out with a tablet. So they've tried and tried and tried to get it right, and Apple's been learning the whole time. So, one thing I think that you have to pay particular mind is that the iPad is not the be-all, end-all for everyone. It's got some places where it's really excellent, and it's got some other places that it doesn't fit. And Apple's not trying to say it's for every purpose for everyone. So that's, I think, the key.
Yeah, I agree. When I show it to people and they complain about lack of certain things, I say it might not be for you. That's fine. I don't try to convince people the iPad is your ultimate device, even though I think if they ended up getting one, they would soon learn to love it and would look past what it doesn't do and look at what it does do, and what it does do extremely well.
Yeah, and that's really the key thing, is that the things that it does do, it does tend to do really well, and people are really thrilled about using it for those things. You just have to realize it's not a desktop computer replacement. It's not even a high-end laptop replacement, but it is, for a lot of things that people do from day to day on their computer, it's an excellent replacement.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of from there, I wanted to discuss with you a find I had of the week. This is something kind of bizarre. When I initially got my iPad April 3rd, I tested the iPad with the very small iPhone charging that you just plug into the wall. Looks like an AC outlet, basically. And it didn't work. It said not charging. And earlier this week, and even today, I was testing it out, and it now charges my iPad. I'm not sure why this is happening. Maybe I'm plugging into a more powerful socket. But have you encountered this? Does your wall charger, does your iPhone work?
So you're talking wall charger specifically. I have not actually tried my iPhone wall charger with the iPad. And now I did understand that it would charge if the iPad was asleep or, just not
It's doing
active.
it, when it's awake, when it's actually hooked up to a TV set streaming video to it and doing kind of some intense things, and it still charges. It's very bizarre.
How rapidly is it charging it, Tim?
I'd say pretty much as fast as the 10 watt. I haven't done tests on this, but I can say it's showing the charge signal. It's not saying not charging, but really charging. And that was kind of weird because it didn't earlier, and there hasn't been any software updates. So I'm not sure if I'm just plugging into more powerful sockets or what's going on.
That's very interesting. I'll have to do some investigation myself on what I see. But yeah, I mean, I know the word from Apple was specifically that it wasn't charging when the iPad was active because there just wasn't enough power. It was kind of keeping it from deleting the battery very much, but it wasn't going to charge the battery. But I'll check it out, see what I find.
Yeah, I have to start worrying about confusing the iPad charger with. I've got some old iPod chargers that look identical, but don't have the same voltage and don't really work with the iPad. So I have to check the labeling. One says iPod adapter, one says 10 watts or whatever adapter.
Yeah, I'll check that. I've got a couple of iPhone adapters plugged in at different places of the house, and I'll see what the iPad looks like when it plugs in there.
Very cool. Well, from there, I just want to move on to, this is kind of a huge segment this week, News of the Week, and there were some huge updates for applications this week. So the first one is, let me get to it here. First one is simply the Nook app. What are you saying, John?
Let me just throw something in while I think about it. I have been amazed at the number of application updates that have been coming down the pike. I don't know about you, but several days in a row there were over 10. One day there was over 20. Yeah. Just waiting to be updated, and it's like phenomenal the amount of updates that are happening. I don't know if it's associated with people getting close to WWDC and wanting to get them updates out before they go off to be indoctrinated, but yeah, it's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, and some of these have been really home run updates, as we'll get to at the end of this list here. But the first thing that came out this week, or I guess it's not in sequential order, but the Barnes & Noble Nook app is now available for the iPad, which is a huge thing that happened because that makes the iPad the single device that works with all of the mainstream ebook libraries right now. It works with Kindle, it works with Apple Store, and it works with Barnes & Noble Store, and it will work with Borders ebook store once they get that up and running, it would appear. So it's pretty cool, and I've played with the application. My order of preference is the iBook app, and then Kindle app, and then Barnes & Noble, just because you can customize the Barnes & Noble app quite a bit as far as the type and all of the how it looks, black and white, Cydia, all those kind of different things. But I really want them to add animation to make it look more like a book. That's something I really enjoy out of both the Kindle app and the iBook app. That's not there with the Barnes & Noble app. But for version 1 app, I think it's very good. And it works with that whole sharing system Nook has where you can actually lend out books. And that's a very cool thing that it does. Have you had a chance to play with this one yet?
I haven't yet, and that's something I'm going to do in this next week. I did download it, and I'm looking forward to checking it out. Yeah, it is pretty phenomenal that the iPad is the device for electronic books. It's just the best device, really. And I tell you, I disagree with a lot of people that say that it's a bad thing to read on the iPad versus the Kindle. Mm-hmm. Certainly, you're not going to read in bright sunlight on the iPad versus a Kindle, but I don't typically sit outside in bright sunlight and do a lot of reading. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, I turn the brightness down in a darker room, and it's as easy on my eyes as paper, I think. So, great thing. I think, we mentioned some weeks ago, we were talking and you said how much you read now because of the iPad, as I tend to read a little bit more as well. And the Barnes & Noble is just kind of completes the circle of all the apps, so it'll be a great thing. I did hear that you can actually get, by going into Barnes & Noble stores over the next couple weeks, each week you can get a free book. Have you heard that,
I've heard they're doing that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine that work with the Barnes & Noble app, since it basically it treats it like a Nook. I'm not sure how that all works, but...
Yeah, that's my understanding, is that you go into the store and with the app, and they give you some code or something that you can download a free book. Don't know what the books are, but
sure, yeah, why not?
Give me a chance to check out how well that app works.
Yeah, it's kind of boggling me. I hate to have purchasing books, at least in different formats. I really wish they'd get together and be able to share that DRM, however they're doing it, so I could have all my books in the iBook app instead of buying them separate places. It's nice that they're all consolidated, but I'm never going to purchase books, I don't think, from Barnes & Noble or Kindle just because I want them all in one place. It's kind of the problem we had with DRM music, and I hope pretty soon they'll just get rid of the DRM so we can just have it all in one place, because it bugs me to have that. But it's nice it's all in one place, as I said before.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they can get rid of DRM. I think that's something that the book world hasn't really given a lot of thought to. But it will be interesting, as we look at things coming out from other authors. I think you mentioned in one of the podcasts recently about how individuals now can publish to the iBooks store without going through a third party, and that's really there's gonna be a lot of shakeup in that whole industry, and the more DRM in a given chain of books, and the less likely they're going to be successful.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be exciting to see what happens with this whole book industry, because I know Borders is coming out with their own ebook reader and all that. And as you said before, reading on the iPad is simply great. I have not used a Kindle before, but I'd imagine I would not like it just because it seems like, even though it's new technology, it seems really old. It seems like, Newton technology with that black and white screen, and it seems unnatural to click a button to go to the next page. And the iPad really feels like a hardback book in your hand that it just feels natural. And I actually turn on lights when I read, and it's great. So with that said, I'd like to move on to kind of the next piece of news, and that is the international launch. 9 countries, I believe. It launched on Friday, I believe. Yeah. And it was a huge success. Lines were out the wazoo. And once again, it's proving that the iPad is just a popular device.
Yeah, certainly a lot of people are jumping into it. And, this is after we've seen, a few weeks of people getting iPads from the U.S. in these foreign countries. So, the most ambitious of the early adopters probably already had an iPad. So to see these lines still appearing is really saying something, I think.
Yeah, I think all the true Apple geeks probably got theirs on eBay for a high price.
Yeah, or they,
or like
made a trip. Yeah.
Which makes it even more expensive, $1,000 to fly in, or whatever it cost.
Well, Don swears that the vacation was planned before the iPad was
coincidence,
announced.
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm sure it was. But yeah, huge success, and it's still hard to get iPads in America, and I think it will be for some time. So it should just be interesting how many they announce that they've sold. I think they'll announce at WWDC, and just quarterly results. I'm excited to hear it because it's harder to get than the original iPhone was, and that thing flew off shelves as well. So it'll be exciting. So yeah, very popular. And with that said, as we were talking about earlier with iBooks, any person now that has a U.S. tax ID, I guess, and an ISBN number can publish books to the iBook store through iTunes Connect You do have to have a different iTunes ID than your app. If you're a developer, you need a different ID to do that, which is kind of bizarre. But it's not hard to create another Apple ID, but basically anyone can publish. And because of this news, I'm actually starting to work on a book on the iPad, all the possibilities of it, and I started today writing for that. So hopefully in a couple, 2 months or so, that'll be finished and in the iBook store for sale.
Yeah, it sounds like an exciting time for the iBook store and iBooks in general, or ebooks.
Yeah, I think it's going to totally shake up the industry because now, Stephen King doesn't truly, he still will, obviously, but authors can get into a very popular book store now. And one of the things going for it, especially, is publishers haven't given Apple a whole bunch of content. It's not the most popular store right now. I think it will be one day, but it's still kind of barren. And with individual authors going in there, they will get identified easier, I think, than going and publishing elsewhere. Perhaps. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think it will be kind of interesting. The one thing I wonder about is whether they're, without the traditional gatekeepers of publishing houses, I would just hate to see, I don't know how to politely put this, but a lot of lousy literature in the iBook store. I think
sure.
that would be a bad thing for Apple. Number one would be people, because I'm assuming that iBooks is going to be pretty much like the App Store,
Yeah.
in that it's difficult or impossible to get a refund.
But even more open, right? They're not going to read the book and dismiss it because it has, curse words in it or something.
Well, right. So you wonder what if anything, really going to do about allowing users, to publish in the store.
Yeah.
Is there going to be, a bunch of what can be called fan fiction? I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's where, like fans of a particular TV show or movie series end up writing in that
and
world with those characters,
stories, right?
Well, usually it's not a copyright thing, but I guess usually because fan fiction is free. But
you can release free books too, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I'm sure you can. What I'm really concerned about, though, is just really the quality. People want to go to the iBook store and are going to, at least initially, expect a certain quality. And if there's a lot of poor quality books that are being self-published out there, I don't want the iBook store to be tarnished and people thinking, well, there's only
perhaps the rating system will kind of take care of that problem where if you get rated really low and no one purchases it, right? I mean...
Well, true, that could be.
And then might put the official publishing houses under a, more accessible way where you might have to search more in detail to find the self-published books. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I would assume that self-published would probably be, separate from, the standard publishing houses books in some way.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if they featured them on the front page, unless it is an amazing book that they've read and let's feature this unknown author to the world.
Right.
Which would be amazing as an author to be on the front page of the iBook store. I mean, your career gets started right there from that. If it's a good book, that's why it's there.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is going to lower the barrier of entry, and there are a lot of good writers that, never get published because they don't know how to go about it, or they get, the wrong person that looks at their book and decides that they don't like it or whatever.
Yeah.
And then on the other hand, there's a lot of stuff that even is published by the large houses that, I consider kind of substandard.
Yeah, I've read stories of people it takes them 15 years to get published, and some people never get published. And after they got published, after those 15 years, they were, huge successes. I mean, the publishing houses almost determine, in a way, your success, which is not a good thing. I like to be in control of my own kind of future, financially at least.
Well, very definitely. And, there have been, over the last 5 years or so, several authors who have self-published on the web, on their websites, and consequently have, based upon their following, have been picked up by publishing houses. So, this is yet another way that somebody might make that initial break.
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move away from iBooks. We've been talking about all sorts of things with the Nook and everything, to some different updates that have happened. And the first one is that for the jailbreak community. Earlier we discussed the Wi-Fi sync app for the iPhone, but it's been updated. It now works with the iPad and Windows folks as well. It's a $10 application that basically just over your Wi-Fi network syncs your iPad. I've not tested this or purchased that because $10 is quite a bit for me for an app. I've paid, quite a bit, $20 or $30 for apps before. But right now, I'll be testing it out later, but just FYI.
I'm glad to see it. I wish that we didn't have to jailbreak in order to do Wi-Fi sync. It's certainly something I hope that we see coming out in 4.0 is more of that capability. It just makes sense, particularly with the iPad, where and there are so many people that even with their iPhone or their iPod Touch or whatnot, they don't sync often enough.
Yeah.
Because they just don't find a need to, and then all of a sudden, something happens, or they didn't update software, or so it would be great to be able to get Wi-Fi
and
sync.
Apple's already done Wi-Fi sync in one of their iPod-like devices. It's called the Apple TV. That does Wi-Fi sync, so we know they can do it through iTunes. It's already been done natively, right?
Yep.
So yeah, that's out. So grab it. It's $10 in Cydia, and from there, This is a very cool app that, if you listen to the Friday show, I just wanted to mention it here for the live show. But Air Display, by the same folks that create Air Sharing, released their initial release of Air Display. It basically turns your iPad into an external monitor over your Wi-Fi network. And I've been using it this week, and it works great. There's a few occasions where it drops the signal and you have to reconnect. But beyond that, it works great, and it's $10. And it's replaced I had a 14-inch monitor that I used to use next to my desk with the 800 by 600 resolution. It was kind of an old monitor, and my iPad at 10 inches gives me more screen space. So it's a pretty phenomenal app.
Good. Yeah, we talked briefly about this earlier in the week, and I haven't made the purchase yet, but I'm very much considering it. I tried the earlier app that came out before Air Display and was not real thrilled with it, but you seem to be very thrilled with Air Display, and so I may be making that purchase.
Yeah, iDisplay I've heard horror stories of, but Air Display, they waited and waited until it was ready for release, and iDisplay obviously wasn't. So yeah, it's a great app. I'm excited to see what updates they do. Like 2 iPads at once would be very cool. It doesn't support that right now. And things like that. They're going to be working on 64-bit compatibility and Windows support and all those wonderful things. But it's a great app. It's $10. And from there, another very cool update was announced. It's an iPhone app, but now 3G iPad owners can make calls with that app. So Skype has been updated to 2.0, and you're able to make calls over the 3G network without jailbreaking. So a very cool announcement and update that's out.
Very, very, very cool. Glad to see that Skype was able to do that.
Yeah, and I've heard Skype to Skype over 3G will be a paid thing in the future. No details on that, but so we'll see how that all shakes out. And I've heard the sound quality has been greatly improved, so it might actually start sounding more like a real phone, which would be excellent.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. From there, there's just two other apps that I wanted to cover that were updated. The first one is Real Director. Now, this one's a big one. I'm going to be looking into this and doing a full review later, but it's basically iMovie for the iPad now. So you can now edit video on your iPad, and I'll be going into more of a full review later on. Have you had a chance to look at this, or are you much of a movie editor, John?
You know, I'm actually for an app that we're working on. I'm actually having to do some editing in iMovie, and so I was looking at this. I saw this an announcement on this earlier in the week, and it's interesting. I'm not sure that I'm ready to go there, but it's definitely an interesting deal. And I know there's a bunch of people I follow on Twitter that are in the movie industry and they're clamoring for some capability, and so it's great that this has been updated for the iPad.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and I'm excited to test it out because I tried to edit a video with the iPhone version, and it just doesn't work well on the iPad, even with it blown up.
Yeah, I don't even know why they would have made it for the iPhone. I can't imagine trying to edit video on that tiny screen.
I guess it is when you're shooting your home videos on your 3GS, and you can just edit right there.
Yeah, I guess.
I don't know. It wouldn't be for very detailed stuff. But yeah, it's exciting to see like an iMovie version and for the iPad, and I'm really looking for like a Logic or GarageBand update. That will be
yeah, it's I'll get nostalgic here for just a second. I was involved with some of the early video capture boards for the Macintosh, and I actually was involved with some commercials that were being filmed where we took this setup out there with a Macintosh and a monitor and everything on a cart, and we captured from these high-end video cameras to be able to do some quick edits and review stuff on screen. And this was very early for this type of stuff. And just to see how far things have gone, that now I can take the iPad and do that kind of thing with it. Just phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it sure is. Well, our last app that was updated, and this one I actually bought because of this update. And I've held off a long time because I always try to stick within, I use Evernote, so I always try to stick within there. But Penultimate is basically an application that allows you to just write notes with either a stylus or your finger, and it makes it look exactly like a pen, makes it look pretty and all that good stuff. But the one crucial update that added was you're able to actually rest your hand on the iPad screen while taking notes, and it disregards your hand input while it's resting there. And I tested this, and it works phenomenally well. And this is this finally turns the iPad into a viable note-taking device for meetings or whatnot. It's a $3 application that it works really well. So I've been very impressed with that.
So I actually saw a YouTube video, somebody demonstrating this, and they had problems.
Oh, they did.
I wanted to scream through the monitor at them because as the guy was demonstrating it, he kept getting these stray marks, and I think it was because his pinky kept sticking out from the rest of his hand, and so every time he picked up his hand, his pinky would go across the screen and it would leave a mark. But if you practice a little bit with it, I'm sure it'll work very well. And it's really clever that these guys, have said, okay, well, we're looking for some single small space that we're going to pay attention to in this big area that has stuff happening on it. We're going to ignore. So that's all good. I meant to ask you, Tim, since you did just pick up this.
Yeah.
Which stylus are you using with it? I know you have both the Pogo and the Dodgy.
Oh. Yeah, I'm using the Dodgy stylus. The Pogo stylus, I'm not using that much. I don't know. I just don't like it as much. I use it for art stuff more.
the Dodgy is much more free flowing across the screen, right? Doesn't
it is, and there's a lot more tactile feedback with the Dodgy styles, as I mentioned a couple shows ago. But it feels more like a real pen. The other one feels like a paintbrush.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll have to look into that. That doesn't seem to be as readily available as the Pogo is, but
yeah, it's an eBay buy. The Pogo you can actually get at Apple stores. But
yeah.
The Dodgy is much more durable. It doesn't break if you do stuff with it. And the Pogo, that ball will come off with the loose.
Oh, really? It looked from the video you did on it. It looked kind of flimsy. The little plastic tip to it, the little circle.
It looks flimsy, but surprisingly, it's not. You can bend it and torture it, and it stays on. It doesn't tear off or anything. It works really well.
It's great.
So,
great.
Yeah, that kind of wraps up the news and update section. I might be missing some things because there were a lot of just amazing news and updates that came out this week. So if I didn't miss anything, let me know, and I'll talk about it later. But from there, let's move on to our other big topic of today, and that is third-party browsers. I was looking over the App Store and different things that you might want to talk about, and this seems like a good one for discussion. Because I mainly use Safari. I'm not sure what your browsing habits are, but I wanted to just kind of do an overview of different browsers available for the iPad. The first one I'm going to talk about is Atomic Web. Have you had a chance to check this one out?
Yeah, I have Atomic Web, and it's a really nice browser.
Yeah, so basically, I guess I would call this the power browser. It's the browser that you're able to switch between tabs really easily, and you're able to use multi-touch inputs to actually switch between tabs. I'm not sure. I don't have it set up really that well right now, but you're able to flick between tabs. And it's kind of the more desktop styled browser, I'd say. Is that kind of a good interpretation of it, or how would you describe it?
Yeah, it's much more what we're used to, modern desktop browsers with tabs, and the tabs are all live. That's an important thing to note, is that the tabs are live, unlike Safari, where you go into your screen of however many images of pages you have in Safari. Only a couple of those are actually live and up to date. So if you were to lose your internet connection in Safari, not all of those screens that you get when you look at all the little thumbnails of the pages are actually going to give you the data that was on that screen when you bring it up. And they do that for memory conservation. The iPad doesn't have a lot of memory to work with. Now, Atomic Web is keeping all of those in memory, but you do have the issue of potentially running out of memory.
Yeah, and I've ran into that issue before. It'll close down Pandora in the background when I'm doing backgrounding on my jailbroken iPad. It does eat more memory, but the greatest use case, as I like to say, for this one is web forums. I go through the web forum, open a new tab, and it opens it in the background if I choose to. And from there, it loads it, and I can just go through that whole listing of pages and pick them out and read them really quickly. So I prefer to use Atomic Web for that exact type of browsing.
You know, another thing that Atomic Web does is it allows you to just quickly really get to use full screen and get rid of the address bars and things like that. And that's kind of nice when you're trying to maximize the screen real estate.
Yeah, for sure. So that's Atomic Web. I'm not sure the price on it. It might be $3. Prices change quite often in the App Store. I didn't check on this one. But it's my preferred, just general use third-party browser out there. The other one there's a lot of them. I went through the App Store and found a bunch. But the other one I found, this was my first one I installed as a third-party browser, and it's called Browser Duo. What this gives you are basically two windows with two separate browsers. So you could actually watch video in one from a website that's streaming video and browsing on the other. And I actually used this during the last Butler game to show the Duke roster in one side and the Butler roster in the other. And that's how I used it. But you can have it set up so it's either vertical or horizontal as far as the windows, and it's basically that's what it's for. So you can show two things at once if you want to. Have you had a chance to play with this one? I know it's kind of less popular.
Yeah, I think I did play with that one when it first came out. There's actually a couple of them that do some similar things where it's really showing you two windows. And I think that has a certain purpose. Atomic Web or Safari or other. Even if you can have multiple screens and tabs, you can't really show them side by side. And so there is certainly a purpose for it. I think. I would recommend that if somebody does a lot of browsing stuff, they should pick up one of these dual ones even if they only occasionally use it, there's times where you really want to see two web pages side by side, and that's how you're going to have to do it. So. Yeah,
exactly. And from there, this is less of a real browser. It does a lot of things. It's called Desktop. And you're actually able to do side-by-side browsing like you do in Browser Duo. But what it is, it's a multitasking interface. So it gives you access to different applications, a browser, a calculator, currency converter, device stats, so you know the memory or battery usage, I guess, of it, dictionary, you can compose emails within here, maps, a notepad, translator, unit converter, voice recorder, weather, or clock, world clock. So it gives you access to have basically either full screen of the app, 50-50, either horizontal or vertical. And it's a nice little web browser if you want to be looking at or doing some other things at the same time. So say you want to record some audio while you're browsing the web, you can do that with this app, and it works great. So that's a cool little app there. Have you had a chance to check that one out, John? I'm not sure if you have.
I've heard about it, and I didn't actually know that came out in the App Store. I had heard for a while that people thought it wasn't going to get past Apple, and they were talking about needing the jailbreak community to do it. So I'm glad to see it made it to the App Store. It's certainly something that I thought of from a development standpoint. The iPad needed early on was the ability to have some little tools available, essentially, and this is a good way to get those tools available. So,
yeah, the one that got rejected was actually got accepted, and then the next day I think was pulled is called Dashboard. That's one that emulates kind of the Apple widgets and all those different things.
Oh, that's the one that actually it kind of will run dashboard widgets, right?
Yep, exactly. It looks exactly like your Tiger or Leopard desktop. I mean, it even comes with the browsers or the widgets, and you can find new widgets and download them from Apple's site within the application itself. So, yeah, that's called Dashboard. It's not exactly a web browser, but I think there are actually some available in there. Let's see. From there, I found this one. I found actually as I was reading some forums. It's called Expedition, and many people know that the VGA output or display output does not work with every application, and Safari it does not work with. So what this application does is, as the title sounds, it's called Expedition Video Output. So it enables you to have a laser. If you just hold down here, you can have laser input on the screen for when you're presenting. And you can hook up to any of the different display adapters, and it works really well. It updates fast. I've been testing this out, and if you're in like a meeting room and you need to do this kind of thing, or if you need to do a keynote presentation and jump out of keynote, you can jump into this app to display some websites and jump right back in. So I believe it was $3, or actually it's $2. So that's kind of a cool one. I doubt you've had a chance to check this one out.
No, I had heard about this one, and for $1.99, I think it's something that I'll probably put in my toolkit of apps, because it's really neat to be able to put a screen up there. And there's a lot of websites that are things that you want to refer to in a meeting, and it'd be nice to be able to do that on the big screen.
Yeah, I'm able to do this with the jailbreak, but for those that don't jailbreak, and there's most people don't, this is a great solution to do that. I doubt Apple will add that kind of functionality in the future. They may not. So it's nice to have it there while it's not officially supported. From there, I want to move to a different. It's an iPhone application, but I wanted to include this one into the mix because it solves a problem that many people have, and that is Flash. You currently can't have Flash on the iPad, right? So this is an iPhone app, but it translates pretty well to the iPad. And what it does, it remotes into some sort of machine that gives you basically a desktop type browser. So and you just type web, and it gives you a nice iPhone-y type interface. I'm gonna type in Flash websites to find some good, good Flash websites. And there is a mouse cursor, but I haven't really noticed it upon using it that much. So let's go to, waterlife.com. It's a Flash website. So if you try to go to this on your normal web browser, it would not work. But it's loading up here. And the cool thing is, I think this is a better experience than the Android is actually getting through their built-in, or I guess downloaded plugin, because this doesn't affect your battery life. It won't kill your battery. It won't slow down your machine because it's not running Flash on the device. It's remoting into a machine that is running Flash, as I'm doing now. And it runs extremely fast. This is Flash. And it doesn't slow down your battery. I've got 63 megabytes of RAM still left, more than Atomic Web uses. So it's a great little browser. It's a couple bucks. So if you need a Flash for any reason, so you need to access a restaurant website on the road or something like that, this is a good solution for that.
Now, is this called... This is Cloud Browse.
Yep, it's called Cloud Browse.
Which is currently free in the App Store.
Oh, is it? Okay, wow.
Yeah. The one caveat I would say is make sure that you know what you're using it for, right? Because it is security. It is going through somebody else's server, and that's the one thing that people are concerned about the Opera browser is that the Opera folks are a bit more well known than the Cloud Browse folks. But so if you need to go somewhere and see that Flash video or play that Flash game, then do it. But just be aware that you probably don't want this to be your everyday browser. You certainly don't want to be using this to go into sites that have any kind of personal information or anything. So.
Yeah, it's that's what it's for. It's for Flash stuff. So I wouldn't order things on here from sites that use Flash as a means of ordering products. But many restaurant websites, and I know my brother was shopping for his girlfriend, candle websites actually use Flash as the only way to navigate their website. And in those cases, this is a great tool to do that. So as long as you know what it's for and just use it for that, it's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been pleasantly surprised with it as far as the speed of it and how it all works, and I believe pretty firmly it's better than the built-in Android 10.1 Flash, just because of the horror stories I've heard of it slowing down the device and battery life just going out the wazoo and all sorts of problems with that.
Now, of course, remember that you could kind of do the same thing yourself, and that is you could use VNC from your iPad to some desktop computer or laptop and run Flash on there.
Yep, I've done that. The difference here is this application is designed for you to be it's designed for the size of the iPad screen or the iPhone screen.
Right.
So I find myself using this because I don't have to zoom in and out, and it's just done in a way that makes sense for the iPhone. For instance, I'm able to press a single button that says web to quickly go to Google search or the location, And there's a lot of iPhone-y type features that are built into it, so it feels exactly like a built-in browser, but it's not, which is kind of weird. It feels like a built-in browser, but it's actually remoting into a different machine. So it's very bizarre how they're doing this, and I'm kind of curious how they're doing this, because if you have a bunch of users, would you have to have a different machine for every single user trying to remote in? I'm kind of concerned.
No, I'm sure they have virtualized sessions and whatnot. That's pretty standard stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, cool. And let's see. From there, we have two more that I've actually played with that aren't exactly typical browsers. The first is the Google application. And what this app is, you're able to do voice search. And I've done some. And let's search iPad. So I just search for iPad. And it'll try to find what I said. Yeah, it didn't quite get that. It said I had and then said. But it'll pull up a browser that you're able to just open web pages right within this application. So if you need voice search and quickly being able to search like that, it's a great app for that, as well as quickly accessing your Google applications. So that's the Google app, and it's built right into it's for the App Store. It's not some sort of hackery type way of doing it. Have you had a chance to play around with that one, John?
Yeah, I've played around with it a bit. It is great, and in particular, it's a good way to get into the Google Apps very quickly and easily. And it's a handy app, and I'd recommend it. Everybody go get it. It's just no reason not to.
Yeah, exactly. It's free. I mean, so the voice search, I've been surprised at how good it is. I think it's better than the iPhone voice search. I'm not sure why. It might be the high-quality microphone that iPad has built in. I'm not exactly sure why, but it seems to work better.
Yeah, I haven't done much with the voice search, but certainly the microphone is better on the iPad. We know that.
Yeah. And the next app that's not really a traditional web browser, but it's called 1Password or 1Password Pro for the iPad. And if you're not familiar with 1Password, it's a Mac and now Windows compatible application. They're in the beta for Windows, but it's one of the best password management systems out there, and it's got the ability to basically save all your passwords as well as a lot of other important things like your credit cards and all that. And you're able to access the websites right within here. So I'm going to adobe.com, and the cool thing is if you need to access all of your private secure type things, you don't have to go through and try to remember your passwords or jumping in and out of this application to enter those passwords. 1Password will enter all those for you, and just, I guess it's the browser of choice if you just want to access all of your login.
Yeah, I'm a 1Password fan. I've used 1Password on the Mac for, probably since very shortly after it came out. And there's a lot of other things like this, few for the Mac and a bunch for Windows. I'm glad to see it going over the Windows because I think it's really superior to most of the other ones I've tried, and it is just phenomenal on the iPad. If anybody has an iPhone or an iPod Touch and an iPad, make sure you get the Pro version that works on the iPhones, and it'll work on your iPad as well. But there is a separate, slightly cheaper version for the iPad by itself, but that would only work on the iPad. So if you've got both devices, make sure you get the one that works across both devices. But it's phenomenal. I have my phone passwords. I think we mentioned on the podcast last week that I lost my phone on a trip, and the nice thing is that I know that even though I had passwords on there, if somebody got past my my screen lock on the iPhone, which hopefully they didn't, but if they did, then 1Password is not going to be giving up my passwords very easily. There's actually 2 layers of protection for most of the passwords in there. I don't know if you mentioned that, Tim, but...
Yep, there are. I disabled the second layer because I found it annoying. But there are if you want it, but you can disable the second layer out of the convenience factor if you desire.
Yeah, and actually what you can do is you can specify on each individual password whether you want the second level or not. So, for your banking password, you could keep the second level there, but for your, I don't know, your YouTube ID, you could not have a second level and just have the first level. So
Yeah, it's a great app. I've depended on it for many years on the Mac, and it's great that it's now on all the mobile devices. And you're able to store secure notes and different identities for filling in addresses and all that kind of stuff.
So I might mention the use case for it on the iPad or even the iPhone.
Sure.
So there are two ways to use it. One is, as you've kind of alluded to here, is use the built-in browser so that it's very convenient. You click on a URL through the program here, and it takes you there and it logs you in, and you're all in fine. Now, if you're going to be like booking around and doing a lot of browsing, I mean, this is not made to be your primary browsing source. So if you're really using Safari or Atomic Web or something else like that, then you want to just jump in here, copy your password out of it, and then go into the other browser, log into where you need to log in, and then do all the browsing you want to do.
Yep, exactly. As well as your credit card information, you're able to copy that out into browsers that need that. And it'll be great once 4.0 hits, because I think they'll have some multitasking things so you can more easily access that. And I guess especially once they add in the there used to be a bookmarklet that worked with it works with the iPhone, but they're still working on an iPad version of the bookmarklet. So basically, once you're on a website that needs a password, you can hit that, and it takes you exactly to that password you need to copy. But that's currently not available for the iPad version, so hopefully they'll get that working pretty soon. But it's a great application. I thought we should lump in with the third-party browsers.
And it does sync across platforms too. So it syncs to the Mac and back and forth to the iPad or the iPhone. I'm sure the Windows version will do that as well.
Yep,
so.
I'm really hoping they'll add a support for like over-the-air wireless syncing, because I use my iPad with Dropbox. So I'd love if you could just instantly sync your passwords that way. But currently you have to do it through the application on the Mac or Windows machine.
Yeah, although there is, although I've never used it, there is syncing, web syncing up to the, I think it's made by Agile Software. I think you can sync up to their website and actually access your passwords through any browser.
Yep, I've done that as well.
It's securely, right?
It's great. It's like a native app, at least for Mac or Windows on the web. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So enough about 1Password. I'd like to move to some, untested apps. I just want to mention them. I haven't reviewed these or played with them at all. But the first one is called Big. It's a browser and file viewer. And I believe it has access to VGA output as well. It's $4. But say you're presenting some information and you want to access your files as well in that same app, this one will do that. The next one, it's called iCab Mobile. And it's just another browser. I've heard good things about it. I have not played with this. This one does not have any, stellar runaway features, I don't believe. It might be similar to Atomic Web. Now I'm going to move from those to some kind of more specialized browsers with some different use cases. So the next two all kind of center around protecting yourself if you want to do that, or especially your children, against unwanted content on the internet. The first one's called Safe Browser. It's $5, and it's a universal application. The next one is called Safe Eyes Mobile, and it's a little bit overpriced, I think. I haven't played with it, but it's $20 for this browser. But both of these are designed to filter out, porn and kind of illicit content from your iPad, so you can give it to your child safely and don't have them worry about going to bad websites. Because I don't think the built-in preferences for Safari are that good as far as getting rid of bad content. Do you know differently, John?
No, the Yeah, Safari is not really utilizing the kind of techniques that these are probably utilizing, where they're going out to before bringing up a website, they're going out looking at some kind of site that tells them what's good and what's bad. So I know Safari on the desktop does have some parental controls which may do that, but I don't think the iPad version is that sophisticated yet.
Yeah, and you're able to, I guess, you can actually turn off Safari on the iPad, so you can only have this browser, the safe browsers, installed. So you can actually give these to children or an educational setting, turn off Safari if you wanted to, and give them just the safe browser. And once you turn it off, it disappears from the iPad home screen, and you can't access it. So I guess that's a kind of a cool feature that Apple has built in. If you don't want Safari on there, you can take it off.
Yeah.
Which I'm kind of curious how opening up links would react. I guess you want to be able to open up links from within Mail once you do that. I'm not, so I'd like to play around with that someday, but just a cool little feature that's in there. The next one is called Private Browser. And there's a couple like this, and this is kind of the opposite of Safe Eyes Mobile and Safe Browser. This is when you want to leave no trace of your browsing history. It's a universal application for $3. So if you're doing something that you don't want people to find out what you've been doing, that's what it's for. Leave no trace of anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, the iPad's a pretty private device to begin with, so I'm not sure the use case there, but or the audience there, but
I guess if you have a iPad that you hand around a lot and share a lot, and I don't know, perhaps I don't know. I'd probably just clear your history from Safari if you're worried about that kind of stuff.
Right. I mean, I guess if I was borrowing somebody's iPad, maybe I want to keep what I did private. But that doesn't mean they've already put the private browser on their phone.
Yeah, that's probably a better use case for people borrowing your iPad. You either the borrower doesn't want their information on there, or you don't. So I guess that's a better use case than yourself using it.
Yep.
So, the next two are very related. They're from the same developer. They're both for $1. And basically what this does is they're called News Browser and Business Browser. It basically outlines the top of the browser with bookmarks to those types of sites. So it'll have like NBC, CBS, and all of those. Very quick to access. So I guess it's a good interface to access all that kind of information, but nothing really special about that.
The interesting thing to me here is the type of app this is. This is not a difficult app to put together. You know, probably they spent a little bit of time putting the first one together, and then the second one was, you know, an hour to make it do the other thing. And the thing that they're doing is they're selling convenience, right?
Exactly.
And you're buying convenience for $1. And that's the interesting thing about the iPhone and the iPad, is that there are a number of things that are relatively simple, but you buy them because they're cheap and they're a convenience for you.
Yeah, and I would have preferred them to lump these together in one app and have the ability to switch between modes of news or business. But obviously they want to make more money, so that's not something they want to do.
Right.
But yeah, as you can see on the screen here, they just have all the, different bookmarks up there in a pretty way, and I'm sure it's a great app, but unless they get a free copy, I don't think I'll pay $1 for it. But yeah, it looks like a good app. Kind of moving, we've got 3 more browsers. I know there's a lot of browsers, but I kind of wanted to do a big overview so everyone knows what's out there, what's available. The next one is called Pro Browser. It's a universal application for $2. And the kind of special use case of this browser is if your iPad for some reason goes to a mobile version of the website, which some bad designers of web are doing, this enables you to go to those full web browsers, full website.
Yeah, and that happens, all the time. Is that you do
Twitter
that.
is the most frequent one I run into.
Right, I run into it all the time, and usually the bottom of the page, the mobile page is some kind of link to get you to the regular site, but it's not always so obvious how you get to the regular site.
Yeah. And this is more useful, I guess, for the iPhone, but sometimes it happens with the iPad, but it's not as frequently. I think the iPad identifies itself as an iPad, so it's up to the developer of the website to figure out where they want to lump it together with. Moving from there, if you're a Google guy, really are in the Google ecosystem, we talked about the Google mobile app, but the other one that's available, it's I believe $5. It's a universal application called GWiz, and it looks like a great app. It basically gives you easy access to the Google websites, the Google applications. Basically, how it's used is they've got the different apps on the bottom of the web browser that you're able to swap in and out with the traditional edit and move in and out icons. And you can pick your favorite 7 applications from Google and just have them up there, and it gets rid of a lot of the interface stuff, so you have more screen real estate for these applications. And it's been getting really good reviews. 5 stars, 4 stars. Yeah.
So
John.
Tim, why would you use this instead of the free Google app that also gives you access to all the Google websites?
I'm not entirely sure. I guess this one's designed more for, I guess the Google app's designed more for search, and it was an afterthought to add some of those applications in. I know in many cases it opens up Safari when you click on those apps. This one is designed for the apps for accessing those sort of things. So I think it's a different design perspective.
I see.
Does that make sense? I'm not sure if I'm explaining that right.
No, it does make sense. So, I guess focus of the design is the difference. So,
yeah, and it's $5. It's been getting good reviews. I'm not sure. So I would imagine it'd be getting really low star reviews if it was that bad.
Well, so here's a thing that I'll clue you in on.
Never mind. Looking at it more closely, 10 1-star reviews, 3 2-star reviews, and then 8 5-star, 7 4-star. So kind of mixed bag here.
Kind of mixed bag. Okay.
So I'm not sure. Some might be paid reviews. I have no idea or no way of knowing. So yeah. So that was GWiz. And the last one is an app called Browser Notes. So the purpose behind this app is giving you the ability to take notes while browsing the web. And seems like a good concept. Seems like it's been executed pretty well. Let me open up the App Store page for this. And there's some other tools that do this. I believe the desktop we talked about could accomplish similar things. It's 99 cents, and it's been getting good reviews, as the other one was. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a very pretty app. As you can probably see here, is they're browsing the Apple site, and they're writing down notes about the different iPads available. And just another kind of different use case of how people might be browsing the internet on the iPad. So that's kind of the final browser of the day.
That one looks pretty interesting to me. I mean, there's a lot of times where I am off to several websites and I want to take notes about each one, and looks like I might have a use case for that.
Yeah. So I think that's a pretty cool app, and it's only $1, so not bad. And I mean, from there, I wanted to show off some different things. This isn't in the show notes, and I just thought of this right now, but I wanted to show off some different things you're actually able to do with web bookmarks, bookmarklets. Well, first off, you're able to, within Safari, if you add these, and I'll try to find these and add these to the show notes, but there's bookmarklets available to find text in the page. So if you're looking for a way to search website, you can do that pretty easily through bookmarklets. You can actually clip things to Evernote notebooks through a bookmarklet. It works exactly the same as it does on the desktop version. I have to wait for the web page to load before I can do that. But those are two just kind of individualized use cases for web browsing with Safari. If you're an Evernote user, add that bookmarklet to your Safari, and it'll work really well. And Instapaper, you can add that to it as well, and all sorts of other things. Do you have any bookmarks that you use for kind of special tasks like that within Safari?
I don't on the iPad. I haven't done that. But it seems like I certainly probably should, particularly with Instapaper. I use, Twitterific has, for the iPad, has that Instapaper similar to a bookmarklet. I don't know if you've tried that, but that's pretty phenomenal. So, when you click on a link in Twitterific, and it opens up that its own browser there to show that link. If you have it installed and set up, you can, besides like spawning off to Safari or email or whatever, you can actually send it to Instapaper, and I use that a lot.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I've used the Instapaper integration with Twitterific, and it works well. So, that's kind of a lengthy discussion on browsers. I think that we went 40 minutes on browsers, but I thought, why not? Let's give it a shot. Let's see what's out there and kind of give you guys an overview.
Yeah.
So, from there, as I should mention, there are many others. I think there are 4 or 5 pages in the App Store for iPad browsers, but some were double functionality and some didn't look good at all. So, from there, let's move on to the picks of the week. Do you have any picks this week, John?
Actually, Tim, before we go to picks of the week, and I don't want us to run too long, but I thought it would be kind of interesting to just take a couple of minutes and talk a little bit about the current rumors for Apple TV and what that may or may not mean for future functionality with the iPad.
Sure, yeah. Can you start it off? I'm going to pull up the article on Engadget. I read about this, and it looks very intriguing. So why don't you get started with this here?
Sure. So, it is just a rumor. So I'll start that disclaimer right up front. But there is talk of some new functionality coming down the pike for Apple TV. It looks like it'll be a new device that will be focused mainly on streaming, so it won't really have much, if anything, in the way of local storage. It looks like it may have something closer to the iPhone OS working for it, or maybe the iPad OS, if you want to think of it that way. And they would be mostly streaming. It would have connectivity to cloud storage. So, there's been rumors for a long time about Apple bringing up this data center in, I believe, North Carolina, and having some kind of streaming associated with that. So, it looks like an interesting thing, and I just wonder, what might, if these rumors are true, so we have to go with that assumption first, what might that mean for the iPad as far as, is the iPad going to be something that might help you control this thing remotely? Will the iPad maybe get some of the software that goes on this thing onto the iPad and increase its functionality for TV and video in general?
Sure. Well, first off, I should mention, I think it'd be a great thing to have happen. One cool thing is with the video apps coming out for the iPad, such as Netflix and ABC, with the ability to run apps, I would imagine we'd see Netflix on this Apple TV, we'd see the ABC app on this Apple TV, and I think the application market might help actually develop more video apps for the iPad, and it might just boost up the whole gamut of applications designed for video.
Yeah, I think it's kind of interesting that it might be that the iPad and this device become peers from a certain standpoint, to where the iPad is that, TV in your hand, while this is that picture on the big screen in your living room. So from that standpoint, they might end up being, equals in their ability to work with things. So, like you say, this device might get the Netflix app and the ABC app and other future apps that the iPad will get, as well as the iPad potentially getting anything that Apple developed specifically for the Apple TV, coming down to the iPad, so that you can have that TV in your hand, as well as on the big screen.
Yeah, and one cool thing, it mentions that users wanting to host media files locally will be able to use an Apple time capsule to do so, and it'll stream from a time capsule, which means that time capsule is obviously not running iTunes. So the Apple TV just sees the time capsule, knows there's iTunes compatible movies on there, and will stream it to that device. What that also means, since it's running an iPhone-like OS, I would imagine this functionality would be added to the iPad as well, which means you'd have a built-in capability such as Air Video built into the iPad, except for it has to be Apple formatted videos, I would imagine, versus Air Video where you're able to have any format video. So I think that's a very cool possibility that'll open up pretty soon if this is true.
Right.
So I think it's very exciting. I have an Apple TV and I love it, but I'm using it less now that I have my iPad, because I'm actually streaming videos to the iPad and I've got cables hooked up to TVs and they look great. I do turn on the Apple TV every now and then, but the iPad has become my kind of go-to media device now. Right. Do you own an Apple TV, John?
I do not own an Apple TV, although I have used... I typically just plug in my Mac into a TV to watch certain things on the TV screen instead of the Mac screen. I think if this rumor holds true, I would certainly pick up that. I just haven't seen the need for an Apple TV for the price point it is. I've been thinking about a Mac Mini instead, but there's a big jump in price point there. Yeah. So, I haven't found that need, but I think, this, in particular, if this device is, down at that $100 mark, I think it not only means that there's a place for that, but a place for continued place for the iPad for more functionality for more money, but still, you get some advantages by having one of these Apple TV devices, because you're going to be, really playing, HD TV or HD pictures on your HD TV, where the iPad isn't going to give you that true HD. So, there's, I think, a good distinction between the two for different purposes.
Yeah, and at $100, I can see people just buying, 5 of these, one for each television set they use, right? One for the basement, one for the upstairs, or depending how you have your house set up, right?
Right. Yeah, certainly for $100, it's an easy buy. It's like I don't know if you're familiar with the Roku box, but the Roku box is in that same price point, and it's a pretty easy buy.
Yep, Boxy Box will be around $200, I believe. And I purchased Apple TV for my mom. And I actually hooked it up with the 500 gigabyte hard drive inside and just loaded that Apple TV up with content, because I knew she wasn't going to be someone that had a bunch of video content or wanted to buy content. So it works great. It's a great user interface if you have content, but that's been the real lacking thing for it so far. It doesn't integrate well with anything except for YouTube, and that's kind of what's been holding it back. So this should be very exciting and should not directly compete with Google TV, but in a way it will, I think.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see what really will come out here and how that competes with Google. And it's good for all the consumers out there. Is the ultimate thing.
Yep, competition is good. So, yeah, with that said, do you want to move on to picks of the week?
Sure.
Awesome.
So I just had a couple of picks. One that I don't think we've mentioned before, which is really good, is Epicurious. So for finding different recipes and information on how to cook different things. I used Epicurious before on the iPhone, but the tiny screen was not very useful. But with the iPad, it is a great app, and a great reason to find some place to stand your iPad up in the kitchen.
Yeah.
So a really good app. I recommend it highly for people who want to cook good meals.
Awesome. Yeah, it looks great. I haven't played around with this much just because I honestly don't cook that much, but I think it'll be a great app for those that do cook. And I believe it links up with like an iPhone app to build your shopping list as you go out and things like that.
Yes, it does. So it's I don't use it often, but it's great to have it available when you need it. So then the second thing I had is Early Edition, which we actually mentioned last week.
Yeah, great app.
It's proven to be as great an app as I thought it would be. It's just great for creating a paper for my own personal paper out of all the different internet sources. So can't recommend it highly enough for people who want to keep up to date on different things. So
yeah, I was surprised at just how fast when you click on a article, it's just instantly there. I mean, that just blew me away. The speed.
Yeah, it seems to download most of it pretty efficiently and have it there for you. So I'm still customizing the feeds into it, but it's a really nice application. So I recommend it.
Yep, I agree. That was part of the Friday show. I love this app. It's changed the way I read the news on the iPad because I've had RSS readers, but I never used them because I had that backlog of stories I just never could catch up to. But with this, it gives me a new paper every day. I'm able to look at older stuff if I need to, but it doesn't show it to me.
And then the last thing is GoToMeeting. So for anybody doing business, there's GoToMeeting is a Citrix company. There's actually several different apps, GoToMeeting being one of them. And so instead of having to be tied down to your laptop to watch a presentation or see what's going on in the meeting, it's similar to WebEx, and there's a WebEx client as well. But it's great to have these things on the iPad and be able to be a little bit more portable. I don't have the 3G iPad, but my hope is that when I do have that, if I find myself away from the desk when a meeting comes up, I can just fire it up and use it. So it's really nice to have that capability and have that in the palm of your hand is phenomenal.
Very cool. Yeah, I've heard about GoToMeeting on different podcasts advertise it, but I've never had a chance to use it. But I've heard it's pretty cool. You're able to talk to people or whatever with the mic, and lots of just very cool technologies built right into it. But with that said, I believe that's your last pick, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I wanted to pick something that you might not have seen or heard of, some kind of one of those hidden gems. And this one is called TallyPad. And I was looking for an application that allows you to basically count without needing to think. So basically the premise of this app is you've got 3 different columns here, and you just tap or swipe any direction or whatever, and it will keep track of your count. So if you're trying to keep track of a game score, or if you're trying to just count for somebody or count through your DVD collection to see how many you have, it allows you to do that. It's $1, and I found it just one of those just really individualized use cases that you might not have that often, but when you have it, you're glad you have it.
Another one of those convenience things, right?
Exactly. I mean, I can count, obviously, but this makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and you can pick up a piece of paper and keep a tally of 3 different things if you wanted to, but this is not only slick and easy, it's slightly entertaining while you're doing something that might be fairly rote kind of work.
Yeah, and you can set it up with a 1-finger tap and a 2-finger tap, vertical swipe or horizontal swipe at any interval. So say you need to keep score in ones, or if they get a super hard question right, they get 5 points. You can have it set up so 1-finger tap is just a single point, 2-finger taps 5 points if you're playing a game like that. So all sorts of, very cool things. Say if you're playing Scrabble, you can have 5 and 10 point to quickly jump ahead, So I think it's a very cool app that a lot of functionality in there.
Cool.
So that's TallyPad. It's $1. And then the next 2 apps I've talked about before, but wanted to give them as official picks. The first one is called Pen Ultimate. And as I said before, it basically just turns your iPad into a big notebook in which you take notes on. And the coolest thing with this app is the provided email functionality. You're able to email entire notebooks or single pages off to, like, say, your Evernote account. Say you have an Evernote account and you want to do that. You simply export the whole notebook as a PDF. And with Evernote's built-in OCR technology, it'll read through that. And when you search for notes, it'll find the information. So that's Pen Ultimate. It's $3, and it's a great app to take notes on if you want to just simply use your finger stylus to take notes with. So that's Pen Ultimate. And then the last one is called Air Display. And as we discussed before, Air Display is simply an external display that uses I don't know if Wi-Fi turned on. That uses your Wi-Fi connection to turn it into an external monitor. So let me relaunch this app here. And it remembers your settings each time. So once you have this launched, you just go in your menu bar on your Mac and select iPad 3G. And with a couple seconds here, it's redone the whole thing. And there is my display. And you can touch it, and that will do mouse inputs, as I'm not sure if you can see or not. And I can simply drag in a window here, and it's right there on the screen. And that is, trying to make it so you can see the mouse. But it works really well. There have been a few issues, but not many. The biggest issue is with time lag, I guess. Or not time lag, but disconnecting. I think that's probably a problem with the Wi-Fi network and not the actual app itself. So we'll have to see with updates how that comes about. The last pick, I said that was the last pick, but I just mentioned picking up some video cables for your iPad as a great tool and accessory to have. There's both composite and component cables available at Apple's website for $50, and you can find them cheaper online for around $30. But I've just been thoroughly impressed at the Netflix app. I've been watching Lost, and they actually stream that in HD if you have a good connection. Even in some good 3G spots, I've been getting some pretty nice looking pictures, even at a 30 or 40 inch size. So I'd say pick up some of those cables and just hook them up to your TV so you can just watch video whenever you need to. So those are the picks of the week. Do you have any closing thoughts, John?
I just think that things with WDC coming in a couple of weeks now, and the new rollouts internationally, stuff is just going to start happening even faster than it has been. So if you're interested in what's going on, come and listen to us on Sunday nights or Tim during the week, and keep up to date on stuff, because the iPad is certainly going to keep moving fast.
Yeah, that's for sure. Next Sunday is the eve, the night before the WWDC keynote. The keynote's on the 7th, and next week is the 6th, I believe. Is that right, John?
I believe that is correct.
So there may be a lot of rumors that night that we'll be able to talk about. But if not, we'll have some episodes all discussing all the announcements coming out of WWDC coming up really soon. So exciting time, lots of things happening. I believe we'll see iPad 4.0 coming up, and it's just exciting. So
Tim, are you gonna do some show related to an analysis after the keynote?
Oh, definitely. And if you'd like to join me for that, I'd love to have you and just discuss that before the next Sunday night show. If we could find a time to do that, I'd love to have that.
Yeah, we should try to do that. Yep.
Okay, I'll email you back and forth, and we'll try to find a time for that.
Great.
So yeah, definitely. That'll be an extra bonus show of the week. We normally do 3 episodes a week, so that'll be episode 4. But where can people find you, John?
People can find me on Twitter, jfinnan, JFINNAN, and where can people find you, Tim?
I am on Twitter as well, TCHATEN. And I tweet about technology-based things most of the time, iPad stuff quite a bit. And you can also find me at thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. That's where this show is found, as well as a couple other shows. And if you want to find just the latest, greatest information there, you can find me there. And let's see, a couple other just closing things. Feedback is always appreciated. Right now, it's at iPadPossibilities@gmail.com. I am working with Google Apps and switching over to a more official email address that has the URL in there. But right now, it's iPadPossibilities@gmail.com and 209-542-iPad if you want to call in to leave a voice message. And as I said before, more information at thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. And listen back to the music instrument episode at the end of the episode, and I'll try to create a listing of this that I can post on the site. But we have a ton of free applications. If you just email me which app you want, I can send you promo codes of some of those instruments. And I think I'm going to take the limit off of one per person right now, just because we have a bunch left. And if you want them, just email me as I described in those earlier episodes. So those are available. And with that said, if you want to support this podcast, you can do that through iTunes by simply rating the show and reviewing the show. And then other 2 ways, if you'd like to support the show, the best way is become a premium member of the podcast. It's only $2 a month, and what that enables you to are earlier releases, just like the application. You get the episodes Monday, Wednesday, Friday, instead of Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. But most of all, you'll be put on mailing lists where I actually email you before any of the episodes go out with free promo codes, and you'll actually have an opportunity to get those early, and basically you'll know all about the free apps. So they kind of pay for themselves. Like in the next few weeks, I'll have some apps worth $20 or so available for free. So the best way to get those are by becoming a premium member. So that's $2 a month. You can find information at thepossibilitiesnetwork.com. Then the last way is just by purchasing the iPad Possibilities podcast app. And that's $2.99 in the App Store. And you get the episodes Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, as well as a couple bonus episodes too. So with that said, this is Tim and John with the iPad Possibilities podcast. And we will speak again.